Have you ever really thought about what it takes to build a mind that's truly capable of value investing? I mean, it goes so far beyond just being smart or good with a spreadsheet. It's like a fundamental rewiring of your entire way of seeing the world. We're going to dive into that today, inspired by Guy Spier's incredible book, The Education of a Value Investor. It's a journey of how one man escaped the very belly of the beast to architect a whole new mind for investing, and really, for life. So, this is where our story kicks off. Not with some big win, but with total and utter despair. How on earth does a guy with degrees from Oxford and Harvard Business School end up feeling such complete self-loathing? This single quote, man, it just sets the stage perfectly for this dramatic transformation, from being just another cog in a corrupt machine to becoming the master of his own destiny.
Okay, so where did that feeling even come from? Let's dial it back to stage one. Picture this, a young, super ambitious Guy Spier, armed with this prestigious education, walks straight into the corrupt heart of Wall Street in the 1990s. You know, he thought he was on the fast track, that he was going to be a master of the universe. But the reality? Oh, it was something else entirely.
And our guide for this whole explainer is Spier's own account from his book. It's this brutally honest story of his personal and professional journey. And that's what makes it so good. It's a rare look inside the mind of an investor who had this huge realization that the biggest market he needed to understand was himself. So Spier lands this job at a place called D.H. Blair, which, let's be honest, was less of a prestigious investment bank and more of a classic boiler room. The whole point of the firm was to push these highly speculative, sometimes just absurd deals. We're talking cold fusion nonsense onto an unsuspecting public. And Spier's role in all this? He figured out pretty quickly that his shiny credentials weren't there for his analysis. Nope, they were a marketing tool. He was the Ivy League fig leaf, meant to make a corrupt operation look legit. And this really painful time at D.H. Blair, it led to his first massive breakthrough. He realized that the kind of hyper-theoretical, academic brain that gets you to the top of the class at Oxford, it's not just useless in the real world of investing, it can be actively dangerous. And this just illustrates the two types of thinking perfectly. See, Spier started out with what we can call a Formula One mind. It's highly specialized, it's obsessed with these elegant theories, but it's completely helpless in the messy, muddy reality of the market. In fact, when he first encountered the simple genius of Warren Buffett, his academic mind literally dismissed him because the facts didn't fit his precious models. What he needed was a value mind, which is more like a rugged, all-terrain Jeep. It's not about speed, it's about resilience and patience and just navigating the world as it is, not as some theory says it should be.
So Spier escapes D.H. Blair, he discovers the principles of value investing. Story over, right? Happy ending? Not even close. He then gets sucked into what he calls the New York vortex. Think of it like a psychological hurricane of envy and status and just noise that nearly destroyed his new investing philosophy before it could even get started.
See, in New York, it wasn't enough to just be doing well. He was surrounded by hedge fund managers who had bigger funds, fancier apartments, you name it. And this constant comparison, it just fueled this consuming envy. It's this corrosive emotion that just pushes investors to take foolish risks to chase what other people have instead of just focusing on their own path. And what does that kind of envy lead to? Well, it leads to things like this. Spier admits he quadrupled his office rent, spending $250,000 a year for a fancy address in Carnegie Hall Tower. Why? Not for any real business reason, it was simply to look successful. It was all about external validation, a really expensive and really distracting flaw. And of course, you had to have the ultimate Wall Street status symbol, the Bloomberg terminal. His description is just perfect, the informational equivalent of smoking crack cocaine. It's this constant, addictive stream of news and data and stock prices that just encourages short-term reaction instead of the calm, long-term thinking that value investing actually demands. It was like pointing a fire hose of noise directly at his brain. So this brings us to what is probably the most radical and important step in his entire transformation. Spier realized that if he wanted to change his thinking, he had to change his entire life. He needed to consciously architect an environment, a sanctuary, that would protect him from that vortex, and maybe more importantly, from his own worst instincts. And this leads to this key idea, structural advantage. Spier learned that it's not about being the smartest person in the room. In fact, temperament and your environment are way more important than IQ. A structural advantage is a system you build around yourself that basically makes rational behavior the default option and makes all those irrational temptations really hard to get to. So how did he do it? How did he build this advantage? He literally moved his family and his fund across the world. from New York to Zurich. And just look at this contrast. He left what he calls extremistan, a term he borrowed from Nassim Taleb for a place of extreme, unpredictable events, for a place where, quote, boring is good. He swapped out his competitive peers for quiet solitude. He traded that addictive Bloomberg terminal for a physical library. He left an atmosphere of envy for one of calm.
He even engineered his office down to the tiniest detail. It became this fortress of rationality. He created a busy room that had a standing desk for doing tasks like email, which made it kind of uncomfortable to just hang around it. And then there was the sanctuary, a totally silent library. No phones, no computers, just books, quiet, and a bust of Charlie Munger, acting like a silent guardian of rational thought.
Okay, so with the external environment totally redesigned, the final battleground was still there, the one inside his own head. And this is the core insight of this entire journey. The ultimate challenge for any investor isn't about mastering the market. It's about mastering yourself. During his life-changing lunch with Warren Buffett, he was asked this incredibly profound question. It's such a brilliant thought experiment, and it's designed to force you to ask, who are you really trying to please? Are you living your life for the approval of other people, or are you living it for your own internal sense of integrity and excellence?
And that question, that's the very essence of what Buffett calls the inner scorecard. It's about shifting from needing external validation, that's the outer scorecard that drove Spier to D.H. Blair in the expensive office, to measuring yourself by your own internal compass. For an investor, this is, well, it's everything. It's what gives you the courage to buy when everyone else is selling and to stand apart from the madness of the crowd.
And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway here. You can read all the investing books in the world, but if you don't first architect an environment that protects you from your own flawed, emotional, and frankly irrational mind, then it's all for nothing. So I'll just leave you with this question. What noise in your environment is keeping you from thinking clearly? Because if you can build that sanctuary for yourself, the rest is just noise.